this one came from Denise here in Edmonton. Yeah, Denise here in Edmonton. Hi, Dan. I was wondering if you could share some information on shrinkage. My accountant just completed our year-end financials, and our shrinkage is 3.5% for 2020. When I Googled when I Googled retail shrinkage, it seems much lower than mine. What am I doing wrong? Denise, thank you for the question. I've already chatted with Denise. We actually had a call, talked about shrinkage, talked about some strategies to help. Shrinkage numbers are going to typically be all over the place. And retail shrinkage in 2020, I believe, was reported at about 1.6%. The number generally in retail runs about 1% of sales. We certainly see that numbers can get up as high as 3 to 5% in shrinkage, depending on the type of store you are. And so the overall number that she found on Google maybe told her a different story. Well, that takes into account stores that have zero shrinkage. And there are stores out there that have near zero shrinkage. I shouldn't say zero. Nobody has zero, but near zero. So I really said to Denise, and I say to everyone, like any number, we need to drill down to identify and solve issues, the real issues. We should recognize what percentage of our shrinkage is an internal problem and what percentage is an external problem. Statistics report approximately 1/3 of your shrinkage comes from an internal problem, a staff problem.
Yep.
Ouch. Another third of the problem, 33% of shrinkage, Rob, you're going to believe this one, is on the owner.
Yeah, I can believe that.
That's taking product out of their stores, and that creates a shrinkage. It is. I'm an offender of that myself.
Yep.
And then a third is that external customer. The customer is taking. So I came up with 3 things you can do to help improve your store to mitigate some shrinkage. You're not going to eliminate it, but you might help to reduce it. So the number one thing that every security specialist, retail security specialist, loss prevention specialist is going to say, you got to cycle count inventory on a regular basis. You have to demonstrate to yourself and your team that you're paying attention to your inventory. Create a routine to help identify the missing items. Where did it go? When did it go? Where do I post that? How do I share that message? I was taught a long time ago, 30% of your staff will never steal from you. 30% will only do it if they believe they won't get caught. And 30% are robbing you blind because they know you're not paying attention. Okay, if you've got 10 employees, you need to believe that 3 of them are robbing you blind because you're not paying attention. We can eliminate the 6 out of 10 that don't and wouldn't unless they thought they wouldn't get caught by simply creating cycle counts, creating mechanisms in your store that demonstrate inventory is a value. So that's number 1. Number 2, never, ever allow inventory in or out of your store without it being on an invoice, an order, a return, or a transfer. This includes ownership. I should never take anything out of my store unless it's on a document, unless it's entered into the POS system. Yep. When staff see us taking without proper paperwork, it sets a precedent and sends the wrong message. When we don't effectively track our inventory, it sends a message that we don't care, right? We're complacent. Opens the opportunity up.
Pretty slippery slope at that point.
It's a slippery slope. Yep. Number 3 is really about the customer. Please stop leaving your customers and your staff in some cases unattended or ignored in your store. When staff are idle and unengaged with your customer, opportunity for helping themselves increases. Rely on your selling system to keep staff engaged and customers engaged in your store. Rely on your selling system. I can't tell you the number of stores I walk into and could easily walk out with things unnoticed because staff are not doing what they should be. Right? They're consumed with something else.
Yeah. holding up a phone.
Right,
It is
right.
now. Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you this, okay? I'm going to share a bad story of my own. This is a true story of a time when I was in the furniture business. Hired a young man, a person that seemed to be unhireable, didn't have a job, couldn't get a job. We hired him, and he was a wonderful, wonderful employee. And he moved his way through the ranks from being a helper on the delivery truck to driving the delivery truck to scheduling other delivery trucks, to being in the warehouse. And we watched this young man grow from a very young age, sort of 17, 18, to get married, have a couple of kids, buy his first home, all while in our employ. And when he bought his home, he had a Sunday afternoon housewarming barbecue and invited Marlene and I over. I went, which I rarely did, but I went to this. This young man was really close to us. We really sort of we're embracing him. But this is where the story turns sideways and demonstrates this lack of attention that I was paying. As we toured through his home, I identified virtually every single piece of furniture as coming from our stores.
Nope.
Didn't say anything, had my burger, had my beer, left, went home. He worked Tuesday to Saturday. So Monday, when I went into the office, I immediately started looking for invoices, for sales, through warehouse sales and liquidation sales and whatever I could find. Not a single piece of paperwork. And so when he came in Tuesday, I had to ask him, where did it come from? It was all customer returns or defective product that was identified in the warehouse. It was undocumented, and he helped himself to it and filled his new home.
Oh, it just hurts on so many levels.
I mean, that's shrinkage. That's an internal shrinkage, and it came from a couple of things that I identified that we weren't doing. We weren't properly tracking inventory into the warehouse. We certainly did a pretty good job tracking inventory out. Not good enough, because at some point, he delivered some furniture to his home, whether in the back of a pickup truck or one of my delivery trucks. I couldn't tell you, but it happened, right? And so this story, this question from Denise really took me back to that place where I wasn't paying close enough attention. I didn't have that, those practices in place, Rob. And so listen, the three things I shared about cycle counting, documenting all your inventory and having a strong selling system aren't going to stop shrinkage, but it might help. There's other things that we can do, other technologies we can use if you're really feeling a high level or seeing a high level of shrinkage, like RFID tags, security tags and posts, and of course cameras that help to deter the five-finger discount takers. Thieves are really smart. And I listened to someone this week or last week, in a Zoom meeting talk about, why police are so good, why the detectives are so good today. It's because the criminals are better, right? So, we want to do things that deter shrinkage in your store. Won't stop it, but let's at least deter it. And I did also let Denise know that she's not doing anything wrong. 3.5% is probably pretty standard. Why it seemed to be highlighted for her this year, is just a number that we hadn't paid attention to before.
Jeez, well, that was great. Thanks for sharing. That's a tough story to hear, and definitely you can see that he fell into that category of just at one point felt no one was paying attention, no one was looking, and what harm could it do?
And Rob, when questioned, he went on to say, I didn't think it mattered, we weren't going to sell them, every great excuse or what he believed was a reason that he could come up with that just were unjustifiable. And I can tell you stories of our own retail clients sharing with me, a girl walking out of the store wearing a mask that she didn't buy. Something as little as a mask that she took off a shelf, put it on, and walked out of the store with. And that's a staff member that does that. And if that staff member took that, what else have they taken? I can tell you not very long ago, found one of my employees leaving with a duffel bag full of toilet paper. Needed it. He should have asked and he'd have got it.
It's a shortage, man.
Yeah, I never even thought about that sort of funny part. But this poor guy, Henry was his name, lived alone, and he, he was taking cleaning supplies and bathroom supplies, and because he needed them.
Yeah.
And he felt like it was okay. And if he'd asked, he'd have probably gotten them the exact same way. Perhaps he wouldn't have had to take them. He would have, we would have taken him to a store and bought that stuff with him. But, nonetheless, it's happening.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
I like the messaging of, just a bit of that ounce of prevention versus the pound of cure, and just having these little things in place that the weight it can carry, just that they know that there's a system there. There's something that that'll take care in all likelihood 30% of your problem just by that little bit of. They know we're doing something.
We're doing something, and we're counting. I mean, I can tell you, Rob, that there has been so many conversations with retailers that have sold something online that they don't have.
Yeah.
And they can't explain why they don't have it. I can tell you that it's happened with the T&B crew. Hey, we sold ... and didn't have ... Well, where is it? Didn't you do your cycle counts? Yeah, we just counted last week. Where is it? Well, no, that's shrinkage.
Right.
It's the only thing it can be chalked up to. So I had to check my own little duffel bag just to make sure it wasn't me punking underwear out the back door.
Another 30% there. Right on. Okay, Dan. Burning questions out there. How do the folks get them to you?
Absolutely. Retailers, please send your questions to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. I will respond. Maybe we'll talk about it here on the podcast. We've got 8 or 10 questions that that we're going to answer over the course of however long we're going to do the retailer question thing. Please send them, dan@thewealthyretailer.com, and definitely subscribe to the weekly newsletter. Every story we talk about is in there, plus a few Rob will highlight that we didn't speak about, and of course a copy of this podcast, which you can find on your favorite podcast platform.
Right on.